Oh, here we go. We got some people showing up. I'm TK. This is TK and Drink. Sorry, I'm complaining about my eyeballs watering here. So tonight, I got already. And then tonight we're going live with Jason Rohloff from Off Balance Mead there in the Milwaukee area. There we go.
There we go.
Hey, how you doing tonight, Jason?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing excellent tonight. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I realized had my phone set up on a tripod, but it was on landscape and it wasn't flipping, and I was gonna kind of look like an asshole, and we don't want to do that.
Instagram always makes us look like assholes. So go ahead and give yourself a quick little introduction for those who might not be already familiar with you and your persona.
Yeah, so my name is Jason Rohloff. I'm from Milwaukee. I am currently working to open Off Balance Meadery. I put my shirt on special. Especially I waited till I got kind of in my brew area, so I wouldn't have my two dogs turning this thing tan. I've been a home brewer, like a beer brewer, for almost 20 years now. I've been making mead for about 4. And I don't really know where bug up my ass came from to say, hey, you know what we should do? We should like start working towards doing this for real, in an attempt to make money from it. But
there you go.
I think it was just kind of the bug caught me. I started to really enjoy it more and more. All my friends kind of go crazy for it. And in a city of 1 million people, we have exactly 0 meaderies. So opportunity,
wow.
Yeah, so maybe opportunity will knock. We'll see. Hopefully, I mean, that's the goal. And, that's the dream, and everybody would like to do that, kind of follow that passion if they can and not do an actual real job.
Sure. No kidding. And are you in Milwaukee proper?
I'm just just kind of southeast of Milwaukee proper. So the city is called Cudahy. It's just a bit east of the airport. But for all intents and purposes, it's Milwaukee proper.
I gotcha. And you're not, okay, so, but you're not too far from like Pip's Meadery, right? They're like not.
Pips is probably about a 45-minute drive from my house door to door.
Yeah, that's pretty close by most people's accounts, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
you're
45 minutes from Pips. I think about an hour and a half or so from both like Standard and Second City. So they're close. And that's, it's convenient, right. But it's not something that it's kind of like neighborhoody.
No, I meant like you're going to be in good company when you open your place. You're going to have these like you're going to be in that sugar belt. You're going to be amongst greatness over there. So it's going to be one more kick-ass meadery in the area. That's
a lot of the influence are those guys and the Mannix and Bone Flowers of the world. So, I mean, I have actually both of my 2 sugar belt glasses.
Nice.
So it's, a lot of it is, I mean, as Tony from Manic says, he's like sweet sells, and he's not wrong.
It's true. Sweet's what sells. You can make the other things, as your passion projects, but I'm sure those sweet mellow mellows are the dollar drivers.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that, I mean, kind of brought most of us into this world, or at least in my era, that's what everybody kind of got bought into, and so it's
sure.
It's become it's the thing.
Yeah, definitely is the thing. Well, I mean, they wouldn't call it the sugar belt otherwise up there. I mean, everywhere from, who's up there in like Minnesota? Is that like White Bear that's up there? And you got all the way to like Detroit and stuff, and then all the way down south through, Ohio and India. I mean, that's a good chunk of area you guys all take up, and
yeah,
make them.
A lot of all those were definitely well represented at Sugar Belt a week and a half ago.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was living vicariously through everybody's posts. I'm making it a point to be out there next year 100%. So definitely have to link up or something out there. So what was the first mead that you made once you guys, you came you said it was about 4 years ago that you were kind of got this all going?
Yeah, so a friend of mine made what he called it, like a pineapple upside down cake thing. And
ooh.
I mean, I was like, yeah, that sounds great. He's like, okay, here, I'll send you the recipe. And I mean, the recipe it only tells you so much. I mean, I think I look back on the email thread and there's messages going back 40, 45 messages of back and forth and questions and, the things that you don't know before you know.
Right.
I used a yeast that I didn't understand how important temperature control was. I mean, even though I had the ability to do it, I still didn't do it. It came out fusel as hell. I mean, it was pineapple-y, but it was not pleasant. And I still have a couple bottles sitting in a bottle, or in storage that's about that long, that 4 years ago, and they're okay. But it's one of those things where you learn quickly through the mistakes that you make and the trial and error. And then I don't think I was on any like Facebook meat forums at the time. I had nothing there to really go on outside of a cookie dough recipe. And well, I mean, that's what he gave me, and it was fine.
No, I got you.
But I think I'm kind of one of these people. I'm an engineer by degree and by trade, and I'm kind of a nerd about wanting to dive into every little intricacy of things. So, I learned quickly that I'm not just going to follow that. I need to I'm not so much a perfectionist, but when we're going to do something, do it right.
That's definitely the way to do it. If you're going to do it right. There's no sense in going out there and half-assing anything. And one of the things that always like intrigues me is like how many, like speaking of like the Facebook groups and forums and whatnot, like how many different people you see like the same questions asked over and over again. It's like people don't have the ability to use a search function or anything like that. And to be fair, I'm equally as guilty of it, but I guess it's like with the amount of information that's available to us, it's surprising how many people don't take advantage of it.
Well, and most of those forums have a pretty thorough file section that, I mean, Modern Mead Makers is the one that most people follow, who are into it. And there's one file that's in there that I believe is part of the when you join the group, say, will you read this file? And everyone goes,
yeah, exactly.
Yep, we'll do that. I mean, if you do that, that answers 90% of the questions that are on that forum right there. I mean, I have a printed off copy of it sitting on top of my kegerator all the time that I reference regularly.
That's a good idea. I've never thought about doing that.
I mean, I don't always, I have a lot of time I'm using recipe stuff on my phone, so it's a lot of screwing back and forth. But you get to a point where you kind of get into autopilot, at least, kind of crafting up a batch of, I make my recipe and I have everything set out front, but there's always good reference points there. You should check back on that stuff. It's good to know.
It's always good to go back to the basics and make sure you didn't forget anything and brush up on, on all that jazz. So before we get too far into this, you did have 2 cups that you showed up on there. What do we got in there on deck? Maybe I got something that matches up.
Well, so this is, I just kind of pulled this off of the fermenter. It's what's going to be a cherry limeade session. So it's still sitting on the limes. It's not carbonated yet. I got the idea. I got a festival coming up at the end of July, so this should be ready soon enough to throw into a keg. This guy is a dry hop session, although it's really more like 9%. So I don't know how sessionable it is, but it's dry hopped with Citra and Mosaic. And then this guy here, I pulled out of a barrel, is a Cabernet Franc Piment. Well, really more of a mellow mill technically because it has red raspberry and red currants in it. So, just stuff to taste. While I'm here. I mean, I didn't want to necessarily open a bottle, so I got little stuff that I can pour little samplers off of.
I gotcha. So you got how many at any given time? How many different batches do you have going?
God, probably 8 to 10. I mean, I kind of had to write this down. I mean, there's this barrel-aged Cab Franc Piment. I have a barrel-aged Wildflower. I have a barrel-aged Blueberry. When the Wildflower comes out, there's a Princess Tree and Brazilian Wildflower Blossom Chardonnay Piment that's going to go in it. And a black currant mellow mill so I got about 90 pounds of black currants going that hopefully I'm going to throw that in the gin barrel if I can find a 15-gallon gin barrel. I think I've got a source Metal foam cherry raspberry, metal foam latte that I'm probably going to split half and go cacao in it to kind of make like a whatever, a stupid coffee drink kind of thing. A margarita.
Like a macchiato or something.
Yeah, something kind of like that. It's a little hot right now, but with it's sitting on oak, so that should kind of chill it out, and throw some vanilla cacao into it. Like I said, I got this cherry limeade session, and I got a margarita session that I got a, we'll say, influence from Misbehavin' at Sugar Belt. They had a margarita cider. Ooh. That was, to me, there was possibly the best thing at the festival. I thought it was amazing. Yeah, it was fantastic. And there's a bunch of other little things that I've, brew up 5 gallons, split it in half, that I got laying around to blend with this or blend with that, or, just kind of to play with at any given time.
Oh, very cool.
And water.
So, and plenty, definitely got plenty of water going on. You were gracious enough to send me a couple bottles here, and I've been anxiously waiting to crack into to one of them here. And I was curious of which one you were wanting to go with. We got the Barrel Aged Monkey Business, I got the Vanilla Diversion, and that Northwest Traditions.
I mean, the Monkey Business. I mean, that's what it's going to sound like. That's a lot of was barrel aged, orange blossom on a crap ton of banana, and I think some brown sugar. The Diversion is a black currant and blueberry, and then the Northwest Tradition is a traditional metafoam. So you pick whatever you want. I mean, I don't have any of the same sitting here, so I mean, we can't kind of do an exact sort of tasting session. But whatever you think is good, they're all going to be pretty sweet.
I want all of them. Let's go with that Metal Foam Traditional. See how that one goes. I've only had one, I think, Metal Foam Traditional, and that was from Manic. So
this is probably a little bit sweeter than theirs. I did do a side-by-side because I have the same thing.
Okay.
And they're definitely similar. I mean, the honey is going to be similar. I think if there's a difference, it might be in final gravity, and probably yeast choice would be my guess.
Sure.
I don't know what they used. I guess I had my homebrew club. We had the Manic guys here in January, and Keith and Tony stayed at my house just to make things easier, which you can guess how that devolved by the end of the evening. But I had them. I was like, shit. I only bought one of those bottles. I'm like, hey, do you guys got any more of those that I can buy off of you? And they brought one. They're like, we had this one that we took for the photo shoot. I was like, oh, that's great. They're like, here, you can have that. I'm like, all right, I'll do that with my side-by-side.
Perfect. Yes, definitely. Yeah, Tony and Keith are those dudes know how to drink.
They do. They did that night as well. It was not an early evening, that's for sure.
Excellent. I love it. It's got that like woodsy, earthy type of bright, like I call it like the springtime smell. It smells like springtime forest in Washington State.
And it's funny, like with the Metafoam one that I put on cherry and raspberries, you pick up that Metafoam aroma right away. It's just so very distinctive. I mean, a little hint of that kind of marshmallowy sweetness, almost like almost kind of like this natural vanilla character to it. But like once you smell it, you've tried it, you know it.
Definitely. Holy cow. Yeah, that's definitely that traditional metal foam taste to it. Ooh, nice and sweet, but it's not cloying. It's got nice, strong legs on it, from what I can see here. Just drips right down the side. So I was looking at in those pictures, you had mentioned you have some of those barrel aging ones, and you have your, your gravities and stuff written on there. You got some that are starting off pretty high. You're talking like 1170s range, finishing in like the 1070s range. That's pretty intense. Is that something along the lines of what this would be?
Yeah, I think on the label or the little sticker label I have on there, I think it has an ABV, but I think that's around 15, 16, that one.
This particular one is 13%. Yeah, but yeah, one of the other ones is the Monkey Business is 16,
It's 16.
16.1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that
that's
was
a monster.
you know, it's sort of I got some advice from Tony at Manic. I'm a Manic member, so I'm not necessarily not a paid sponsor in any way, but I mean, as a member, I'm there frequently. It's not that far away from me, and
Right.
I'll give them props that they're really good about answering questions. You know, they're not trying to protect trade secrets. It's nothing like that.
Right.
That's really nice, and you know, it's kind of like, well, you can kind of go two ways about it. You know, if you're gonna do something sweet, most wine yeast is going to give you, for those the initiated, are going to be 100, 115 points of gravity. So you can probably pull 14, 15% just by running it till it stops.
Right.
Or you pull it back and you go dry, and then you have to back sweeten. And me, I kind of, if I'm going to do something sweet, I want to do something efficiently, which means if I don't have to back sweeten, it's another step that I don't have to do. So I just run it until it stops, and whatever I get, I get. I mean, I'm not trying to hit exactly an ABV on a label. And even then, you're going to make something and you're going to label afterwards anyway, so it almost kind of doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the commercial guys out there that put like a range on their labels, will say like anywhere from 11 to 14% or something like that. I don't know if that's legal in all states or if it's a case by case basis. But
I've seen the same thing, and all I can think is, how the hell is that legal? I mean, I know the TTB has to approve a label, or they're supposed to approve a label to be able to sell it. Because we've got a guy not too far from here who had the same thing that I saw. How's that possible? I mean, it gives I mean, it's awesome, for the proprietor, because it gives you a window to shoot for. Especially that way you don't have to. When you're buying labels too, if you're gonna buy 50 of them, it's gonna cost you almost $1 a piece. If you're gonna buy 1,000 of them, that's where the price break is. But most people aren't scaled up that big. So
and you're gonna have 948 labels laying around.
Yeah. So if you're gonna make something, again, it gives you that window to be able to reuse it. I mean, it's kind of a weird balance. I guess if you can get away with it, more power to you.
Yeah, definitely. So, looking online, looks like you've got some clout there with we pulled home a silver off of the Mazer Cup for your specialty peach mead.
Was
that Mazer Cup?
No, it wasn't Mazer. Ooh. I've won a couple things at Midwinter. I've won a couple.
Oh, that's what it was, Midwinter.
Yeah, a couple at the Mash Out, or Minnesota Mash Out, or Mississippi Mash Out, whatever it's called now. So I've got kind of stuff setting aside for Orpheus, which is coming up soon. I've been I guess thankful enough to be put in a position where I've been able to win medals. I mean, it's not why I do it. It's a nice pat on the back, by all means. That you have respect from judges. It's not like your friends. Your friends, especially if they're not mead people, they're gonna take a drink and be like, yeah, that's really good. Like, okay, thanks. Like, I get that. That's great that you enjoy it.
But that's like your mom telling you it's good. It's like,
yeah,
they're gonna always tell you it's good.
I mean, but I look at when you're gonna put something in competition. Really, that's kind of that's a good sign from your peers, more or less, that you made something that's quality. I think for some people, or at least in the mead game, I guess it's true in beer, you make something, but where does it fit? Like this cherry limeade technically is a mellow. I can enter it in, but it's going to be a mellow, even though it's a session. I mean, from what I've seen, sessions get hammered in competition. I think there's just less room for error when you're going up against, some monstrous blackberry, raspberry, red currant sort of thing that just, has so much more, natural tannin quality to it. There's just a lot more structure that, from a judging perspective, I mean, I guess I would probably rate it higher too. Because sessions don't kind of get their due just because there's, I'd like to see him in a different category, I guess, if I was gonna, you know, piss and moan about it.
Yeah, it would be nice to see, yeah, each strength level get its own category, or each, you know, carbonation level, all those different things to be able to break it down. I think we need many more meads, unfortunately, at this point, or I don't know if that would clutter it up. But I agree with what you're saying, that the, you know, the sessions definitely get overshadowed by the bigger monster, full-bodied, heavier stuff, which is unfortunate because, you know, there's some really kick-ass sessions out there that, like you were saying, I'm sure that margarita one you were talking about, that was a session, right?
Yeah, it was dynamite. Yeah, it was like 6.9.
Cider.
I can't think of what it was called right now, but I mean, hell, it was. I mean, it was apple. It was margarita. They had salt in it, as though it was like a goza. I mean, it was perfect. It was awesome.
It was perfectly what you needed. I love to hear that. Right on. So do you have plans on opening a commercial meadery? Is that just something that's kind of like a pipe dream, or?
I have an LLC pulled. I mean, I don't have paperwork filed yet, but I mean, business planning is well underway. I want to. You know,
Nice.
Personal life gets in the way of things when you can't fully devote yourself to it. But
Yes.
I mean, just because, you know, you have to have a real job too, and have to be able to have, get yourself some money to be able to go out and buy, you know, $400, $300 buckets of honey, in order to just, you know, to start this thing off. But I mean, I'm hoping, you know, sometime early next year is when I'll be able to do it. I was kind of thinking about, you know, especially if you get to the end of the year, that's not a time to start a membership, because that's when people are going through Christmas shopping, and it's kind of looking bigger picture of there's a financial piece to it. I mean, a membership is a membership, right? Where you're going to generate revenue, and all you need, you know, you want to do it. It's a year-long thing. Well, how most people do it. So yeah, I'm hoping by then I can kind of pull my shit together and actually get the planning and really figuring out the financing. I mean, I do this, you know, I deal with boring P&L type stuff for my job, as it is of basically running a business for my job, my real job. Like that's making me real money. So that part isn't that hard, but you know, I do realize that, you know, trying to go from my current job, there's almost no way that I could just quit, right? I mean, you got to try to do it in parallel, and probably have a year or 2 or 3 where you're just going to kill yourself. But, you know, that's the work you got to put in to get there. And I think that, you know, the mead game right now is really where like craft brewing was in the late 90s. Like, it's in its infancy. You have a couple really good OG guys who are out there, and you know, if you can be one of those first kind of smaller market, real small craft guys to hit, and, you know, kind of plant your roots, opportunity is gigantic.
Absolutely. There's lots of different analogies to use. You know, it's the Wild West, man. I mean, everything's completely open right now. There's, like you said, a few places that have some really entrenched footholds, but other than that, I mean, that strike while the iron is hot, so to speak, and it's only getting hotter as we speak.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like there's one guy. I hate to sound pretentious about it, but that's what mead and craft beer people do. There's a couple meaderies in Wisconsin. I'm not going to crap on anybody by name, you know, who I don't care for as much, but I got a buddy of mine started one in Appleton. That's about 2 hours north of Milwaukee. They were at Sugar Belt this year. They're a really good quality operation, but that's really about it. Like I said, in the state of Wisconsin, practically, there's a couple other smaller ones, but they're not hitting the market of, like, how do I say it? They're doing the stuff that they like, and that's not necessarily the thing that is mass produced. You know, that has that mass appeal. You know, you have to go and get tons of fruit and go and get bananas that are put in there and strawberries and make this kind of big, bold flavors. And those are the things that people want to buy memberships for. And they're the ones they're going to clamor after your stuff. You know, they're going to drive 2 hours to get to your place. So that's where it's tough. You know, is you got to be able to, I think you got to be able to do that. And you got to put, I think you mentioned the passion project. Yeah. You can do it on the side, but a lot of the times, I mean, I love sessionable stuff. I mean, I do. I think it's great. But
Sure.
there's a market, but that's not the main thing that people are going to join you for. You know, they want that big monstrous thing.
Well, and I mean, I guess I agree with you certainly to a certain extent, and I think it exclusively more, especially in the area where you're at, being up there in the sugar belt. You know, all those places up there, like you said, Manic, Maniacal, Bone Flower, Standard, Crafted, Second City, Four Fires, all those guys. You know, they have these memberships that are hundreds of dollars a year, but they give you these, really kick-ass one-off bottles and all this stuff. But that's especially, to where you guys are at. Like down here in the Southwest, there's a ton of meaderies that thrive on dry and session meads, and that's what they sell exclusively. Now, I don't know what their successfulness is, if we're talking about P&L statements, versus some of those more sugar-based meaderies and stuff. I think it's just one of those really regional things. There's a spot here in northern Arizona, Drinking Horn. Those cats don't make anything. I mean, barely some things that are into the off-dry to semi-sweet category, but everything is dry, and a lot of it is sessionable. We're about to say half sessionable and half not, but it's astonishing because I think the same thing is it's not particularly for me. While what they do is really technically well done, it's just not for me. But man, those guys are thrive. They sell all the time. The bottle shops here can't keep their stuff in stock. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, I kind of equate the session mead to kind of like the resurgence of craft lagers and craft pilsners. I mean, I look at there's a local brewery in town. They have a German Pils, it's German-ish, that I keep in my beer fridge all summer long. I drink it, I crush it. It's fantastic. Manic just started making a bunch of sessionable stuff that they can, and it's great. I mean, a 375 of a 16% mead is fun sometimes. Like, I'm not opposed to doming an entire bottle. I'm not that way, but it's not something it's not something that you just want to. You need to drink all the time. You just don't. And okay, yeah, it'll hold for a couple days, and you can put the little vacuum sealer thing on it. But really, a lot of the time, it's meant for sharing. Sessionable stuff. Get yourself a 12 or 16 ounce can and go to town on it. It's just it's kind of like a light beer.
Give me that growler. I want a whole growler of that sessionable stuff. I want enough to last me at least a day and a half, 2 days.
Yeah. They're, like I said, they're fun. They're light, especially now. I mean, it's a little different for you guys because you get warm weather more than 4 months a year, like us up here in the north that we don't. So when we get weather like we had today, this is the day where you take advantage of that. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it was like 106 today or 105 or some crap like that. I don't even know. But
we were impressed with 80 today.
Hey, man, but you guys have a lot more humidity, especially coming off the fucking water and all that stuff. I'm, in the middle of the desert. I hate that saying it's a dry heat, but unfortunately, it is accurate when it's not in the middle of a monsoon. It's a dry heat. It's pretty legit.
Yeah, it's a little different.
So you're talking about surviving up there in the sugar belt, and people that are doing different styles. Stuff that's a little more fruit forward. Some people not doing some stuff that's so fruit forward. It's been, I can't remember if it was in Ken Schramm's book. I believe it was in Complete Mead Maker, but or if I saw an interview with him. But he was talking about, for a mellow mel, they're doing roughly 5 pounds of fruit per gallon. And I think from the math you said earlier, you said you're doing about a 15-pound bat or 15-gallon batch. You said you have about 90 pounds of currants. That comes out about 6 pounds a gallon. Do you consistently try to aim for those bigger, heavier numbers with your fruits?
When I'm doing fruit, I mean, we're talking 5 to 8 pounds per gallon. I mean, I have a press. I think that's something that most home mead makers don't have the liberty of having, which changes the dynamics completely when you have that. So you can ferment on the whole fruit, which is the way that, I mean, you just read Complete Mead Maker. That's how Schramm's does it. That's how pretty much all of the sugar belt guys are going to do it. I mean, I don't want to say that you can that I think you can taste it when it's not. I mean, I'm not opposed to using puree or concentrate. There's nothing wrong with that. Because sometimes fruit availability isn't there. But yeah, that's the preferred method. it's tedious. The loss is huge. I mean, I don't think that the average person understands, or consumer understands. When you're talking, whatever, pick the fruit. So use black. Let's just say you're using that. Like, you make a 5-gallon batch, you're only getting, I don't know, 70% yield out of it. I mean, if you're doing better than that, you've got a great process. Or you have some sort of centrifuge, but there's a gigantic amount of loss. So, like, you may throw in, we'll just say $500 at a batch, that you're going to make, but you're only getting 70% of that. So,
right.
You got to factor that, especially if you're looking at it from a commercial cost. You're going to break down what it's going to cost to produce that bottle. Some Meadery is going to charge $30 for the bottle. Well, no, I mean, it's not like it costs them $30, but there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of loss in there. So yeah, that's really tough. I think that it's a better flavor to me. I like the fermentation on the fruit. It's definitely different. If you have cherries, it doesn't taste like a cherry mead. Typically doesn't taste like fermented on the fruit. Doesn't taste like eating a cherry.
No,
it's the mead that you have that is that's fermented and then aged in like a secondary fermentation, or just aged on the fruit. That tastes like the fruit.
Right.
So it's something too that it's different. As you get used to different fruits, you kind of understand the fermenting on fruit flavor and then the post ferment flavor.
And that's definitely something I'm working with right now. I've got a batch that of cherry that's sitting there, and it was okay at first, but I ended up getting bumped it up to 5 pounds from, I can't remember what it was, just about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds or whatever. And I'll tell you what, that thing frickin' took off. Especially I froze the cherries, macerated them, got them all pressed in as much as I could with a potato masher type deal and everything going on. And I'll tell you what, that thing, part of me feels bad because now it doesn't even taste like meat anymore. Now it just tastes like cherry vanilla juice.
That's a very good point, because I think depending on, I've got, I want to say it was I think it might be the black currant blueberry one that I gave you there. It doesn't taste considerably like honey. Like, a lot of the honey flavor is gone. I'd argue even somebody like Schramm's, which we get plenty of around here, doesn't particularly taste like honey, but that's okay. It doesn't necessarily have to. If you're going to have a traditional, okay,
yeah,
it's going to taste like honey. It's going to, you're really going to get the essence of what that particular honey was. But you start throwing the quantity of fruit, or the ratio of fruit that we're talking about, and
right,
you're going to drown a lot of that out. I think there's a really delicate balance of, if you want to get down a little bit lighter, and then you want to throw in some honey to back sweeten it to kind of amp up that flavor. I mean, if that matters to you, I would argue that for judging, it's a good way to do it if you're, particularly trying to look at a good score. If you're trying to do say you or I are doing, where we want to make something that's just really enjoyable to drink, honestly, I'm less concerned about that. It's all it is right there. And to a point, all you're really getting is it's a vessel to carry alcohol content to a certain degree.
Right. Well, and that's another thing, I concern myself with that post-secondary, or that, post-fermentation adding of fruit, as you're going to be bringing down the gravity with the adding of all that, unfermented sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a fact too. If you're trying to get something if you're aiming for something pretty particular, 12%, well, there's a lot more math that's going to go in, plus a little, a little bit of luck, unless you're making, hundreds and thousands of gallons every single year, or you're doing it repetitively. But I don't know. That's another thing. Do I care if it's 12% versus 13%? Not really.
No.
Not really. As long as it tastes, as long as the flavor points are there, the fruit kind of pops.
Yeah.
I don't have any fusels. I don't have any fermentation, issues. That's really what I'm looking for.
Gotcha. The cats over at Retro Meadery down there in North Carolina are asking, does it depend on the fruit you're using with your press? Do you use whole used whole fruit, not pressed, and have a lighter flavor of the fruit, and it's something that's not overpowered? Like, I guess he's saying, does the fruit that you're using depend on whether it's pressed or not? You know, do you press something to get like a more intense flavor, or if you say not press it to keep like a lighter flavor, or how do you go about doing that?
I mean, I if I'm going to ferment on fruit, now when I say fruit, I'm typically talking about like a berry of some sort. You know, whether it's blueberry,
Sure.
blackberry, raspberry, currants, I'd throw into that. But you know, throwing them in there, I mean, I'm always pretty much always going to press that fruit, and again, it kind of comes down to yield. I mean, if I look at one of the batches of black currants right now, I mean, they're 3 separate, call it 18-gallon batches. When I press them at 3 separate, like 6.5, almost 7-gallon batches, I'm probably only going to get close to 5 out of it when I press it. If I didn't press it, I'd probably get about 3. You know, so I mean, there's still a lot of the, you know, essentially the mead and the must is caught up in the fruit. So I mean, I'm pressing the fruit out. I mean, I've done it before, like most people, where okay, I'll throw the fruit in afterwards, and it doesn't absorb as much, but I'll do kind of like what you're talking about. I'll put it in a nylon bag and just try to kind of squeeze it. But I'm also, as I'm working through recipes and working with different fruit, I always try to keep in mind scalability. You know, like, you know, if I can legitimately make this go the way that I plan on going and the way that we're going to get there, that's where we're going to have to go. I mean, I can't throw 200 pounds of fruit in a nylon bag, right? That's just not a plausible end game. It has to be scalable to a larger volume.
Sure. And I think that's a fantastic thing to be aware of, especially at the stage that you're at, because like, I know you're like, I don't like to name names, but I don't mind naming names. And like, that's one of my things about superstition that I certainly recognized first, because they're probably how big they are. Like, I've had some of their meads that are their like staple meads, like their peanut butter jelly crime. If you've had one from a couple years ago when they were a much smaller operation, you know, it tastes way different than the one that it is today, because they can't get those same level of ingredients at the same, you know, at the same scale that they were. Now, it's still a decent product, you know, it is what it is, but, you know, to consider scalability is, I think, a huge thing that maybe not everybody considers, and they probably fucking should.
I mean, it's hard, you know, like, I think it's, you know, getting into that, whatever that growth pattern is difficult for any business. You know, you get your model and you're good in that model. And say in a meadery, you know, okay, we're going to produce, I don't know, 500 gallons a year. And okay, we're good there. But as popularity grows and people, you know, members want to come along and stuff like that, well, how do you expand? You know, it's, you know, you got to go, okay, I'm going to have, you know, whatever my, you know, 100-gallon fermenter. And next thing you know is we got to be up to, you know, like 5 barrels. Okay, well, how do you do that? The good thing about mead is it's pretty much scalable. But also looking at to say, well, are you going to be able to actually produce that fruit? Are you going to be able to press it? Like, I was joking with Tony, or I'd asked, like, when they made Elliot. Elliot is what is a blueberry mead that they make. And they make a shit ton of it. I want to say that, oh God, what did he say? It's something like I want to say it's like 1,200 gallons. It's something absurd. Like, like thinking, okay, I understand you get all the fruit, you can ferment it. So I'm like, how do you move it? Like, how do you take all that fruit, get it out of a fermenter, and get it into a press? Like, you don't want to lift it. I mean, you can't lift it. You don't want to scoop it. And he's like, we just bought a pump that has an output big enough so we can pump it. I was like, that.
With the berries in it.
Yeah, the pump is big enough. It has an output big enough. I'm like, that's fucking genius. Like, I just never thought to do that, because it feels like it's a solid, but it's kind of not a solid. It's kind of a liquid. At the same time, it's like a slurry almost by the time that it's done.
Exactly. Yeah, it's because Tony and Keith got those freaking engineering brains, man. Those guys are on a whole nother level. Manic is my, like, especially after meeting Tony, like, I was already leaning towards Manic being one of my favorites, but after meeting Tony and picking his brain and talking to him stuff, that he seems like he's on like a whole, like, I want to say like a whole nother level, because that like doesn't even begin to describe. He's like in a whole nother. He's playing a different sport than everybody else.
Yeah, and it's thinking about what that next level is and trying to prepare yourself. I mean, say I had a batch of currant, one of the first ones that I did, that was just overly sweet. It didn't ferment out. I screwed up because I didn't adjust for pH. I'm like, okay. I tried to get it restarted. Wasn't going to happen. So I was like, all right, well, I have, I don't know, 4 gallons of it sitting here. Let's make something that I can blend it with. Like, it's not going to be like, you can do it. Like, just got to come up with creative solutions for, all the different scenarios that you're going to have. And, think of a creative way to utilize your ingredients. I mean, even if something's a little bit off, it's the nice thing about having a bunch of different batches is, I mean, if you're not blending and if you're not tasting your stuff all the time, you're missing out on a gigantic opportunity.
Absolutely. This cherry one that I have going, I have cherry, I had on French oak cubes in there and some vanilla beans, and it was just kind of boring. So I threw a pinch of like a triacid blend in there. My wife suggested throwing some cardamom pods in there. So I got a couple cardamom pods I threw in there. I tell you, it turned into a whole nother animal. It's just, the tartness pops from the tart cherries even more. The sweetness pops even more. And it has this spice market type of vibe. Like you're walking through like a Turkish market or something. It's got this unique aromatic flavor to it. It's so cool. It was such a good call on her part.
And I think that the one thing about that mead that is a little bit different than beer, just because of a lot of the fruit component that goes into it, is you can take a lot of cues from the culinary world. It's like, whether it's like, oh, I like that dish. Okay, well, how can I, it's typically a dessert probably, but I like something like, oh, how do I try to recreate that? Or something that's like a mixed drink. I've seen a bunch of commercial examples that are trying to take a mixed drink and kind of like convert it into a mead recipe. I mean, you could argue, oh, if I want an old fashioned, I'll just drink an old fashioned. Sure, you can, but there's certainly, to me, there's a novelty to be able to recreate that using a different fermentable sugar, but getting kind of the same components to it. I think that's part of the creative art.
I agree 100%, man. I think it goes back to what you were saying about like, with sending meads off to competitions. It's the art form. Yeah, you get a little bit of. It's nice to get the clout that comes along with it, but you're looking for that feedback that comes along with it. You're sitting there and you're brewing this stuff up and you want it to taste good, and you do all these different things because you want that feedback to know if other people are liking what you're doing as well. And
I'd say too, like I have a bunch of friends who are, I'm not, mostly because I don't know, I didn't want to felt like I'm cornered into judging all the time. But a bunch of friends who are judges, and like one of the best tips I got from them is, don't take the last 3 bottles of anything and send it to comp. Make sure you have 4. So you can have that one. So after you get your scores back, you can taste that beer or taste that mead or cider or whatever that it is. So you can sit there and look at that feedback and kind of remember it live. I mean, our memories are only so good. And of course, we all want to think that we make great shit and that it's, oh, this should be a gold medal, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Until you get that feedback, you're like, oh, well, it's astringent and, it has a little vegetal in there and you taste it and you're like, okay, yeah.
I
spot the palate when I had it before I sent it in. But getting that feedback is invaluable and take it, I think you gotta tell anybody, like, embrace that. Like, don't feel bad about it. I mean, they don't know you, all it is, it looks like this. It's a glass to them, take that feedback for what it is and use it to get better.
Yeah. I got a couple of meads I'm getting ready to, I got one that's bottled up, ready to go off the competition. And I ended up sampling it off I had a tasting event for my other business. I ran into Alan Martin, who's a 2021 AMMA Homebrewer of the Year, and he stopped by my tasting event, and I ended up swapping bottles with him, and he gave me some notes on my bottle. I'm like, well, this is actually better than any notes I was going to get from a competition. I mean, now I kind of don't even want to say, I mean, I'm going to, but it's like, this is better than competition notes.
Yeah, you find, I mean, it's good to have those friends who, can separate that friendship and to be like, to give you legit notes. Like, here, like,
yes.
Feel free to crap on this all you want. Like, I'm giving it, I'm sending it, sending it to you, I'm giving it to you because I want legit feedback. Find the flaws. There's, please, are you familiar with the Chop and Brew website and Facebook page?
Yeah, Chop and Brew, yeah.
So they did a like Become a Better Mead Judge series brewer like a year and a half ago.
B-Jam, they did it last summer. Yeah, I watched it all up leading up to the Mazer Cup. It was amazing. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, so I thought that was a really great series, but it was also a really good insight into a couple people. I mean, I think like when Carvin Wilson was talking about the way he judges things is definitely different than how our local judges are taught. You know, he's like, I think our local judges will sit and be like, all right, we're going to start at, you know, like a 25, and then you're going up and down. And he's like, I'm basically starting at a 50, and then we're going down.
Yep.
Like, I'm not just going to, you know, like, what's the difference between a 10 and a 20 in flavor? And you look at your notes and like, they look like you know, it looks like this thing killed. Well, why is it a 10 as opposed to a 15? And there's no answer. Well, you're looking at it, to me, you're kind of looking at it the wrong way. You know, instead of trying to find faults, trying to find, you know, find the things that are good. You know, the faults will present themselves as you go through the judging.
Yeah, I agree. I like picking Carvin's brain about that, and that's another person I want to talk to as well, because I agree 100% with that methodology. You know, it's, you know, start with an A, start at the top of the thing, and then work down from there. You know, it's so much harder for people to be willing to build something up from a 0 to an A than take it from an A to an F. You know what I mean? And one of the things that I've heard around the comps is, you know, you don't get extra points. You know, you can't take the points with you when you die. There's no points. You don't get to take them home and spend them when the competition's over. You know, so many people are just so hesitant to dilly out those points and stuff. And like you said, it's so much more pleasant, and it offers a much, I think, a more efficient experience for everybody when you start, you know, that top down and work your way, you know, down to wherever you need to be.
Yeah, and as I say, taste the mead that's in your glass. Like,
yep,
that's in your glass. So, you know, the sheet will tell you one thing, or the little, you know, entrance thing will tell you another thing. You know what it should be. Also, you taste it in your glass. Well, you know, whether you're doing that, you do the same thing at home. I mean, okay, I say that this is what it is, but is that what it actually tastes like? You know, and I think although this is this dry hop session, which is an organic Brazilian wildflower from Bee Seasonal, which is the most floral honey ever. It smells like a damn bouquet, which is very strange. I didn't realize that when I first tried to use it until it fermented out. I'm like, okay. I hadn't used it before. Like, you know, you can only get so much aroma and flavor from the taste of the actual honey until it ferments out. I'm like, seriously, this smells like a summer bouquet. I can't use it in a traditional wildflower sense because, you know, it's going to smell like potpourri.
Yeah, you said you got that from Bee Seasonal?
From Bee Seasonal.
I think aren't they here in Arizona?
I honestly don't know. But I got MMA or MMA member discount, like, I don't know, sometime last year. But it's
nice.
They import it from Brazil, but it's some Brazilian organic wildflower. I said it is over the top on that floral aroma and floral taste. I still have about half a bucket of it because I got to find a way to use it sparingly.
Yeah. And man, that's one thing that I can only imagine as somebody who's, you know, starting to brew more and more. And I see people on your scale of brewing that honey, like the ones that you really love and you come across, they become like your children. You become like, I don't want to let this go. It's like, I want to do something with it, but I'm afraid to do something with it because then I won't have it anymore.
I'm really fortunate that we have a honey company in town in Milwaukee that I mean, I've developed a pretty good relationship with, probably because of the volume that I buy compared to most normal people. You know, when I go there and I buy like 4 buckets at a time of like orange blossom, and you know, so they give me a pretty good price on it because of the volume. So like, I know that I can always, for the most part, always get certain things from this guy, you know, and he'll even email me every now and then like, hey, I can get some of this. Do you want some of that? Like, yeah, I'll take a bucket of that. Include me in on it before they start breaking it down into smaller bottles.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever listened to Got Mead with Vicky Rowe or and AJ and stuff, but they're always, whoever they're talking to, they always talk about like the best honey sources that they find are this: you're driving down the road and some guy just got a sign on the side that says honey, and it's always some random honey, you don't know what it is, and it tastes delicious, and you'll never be able to get it again, type of thing.
We have local beekeepers who will post on, local forums, like Facebook forums. Oh, I've got such and such honey available. Like, okay, well, how much can I get? Like, I've got 5 pounds. Okay. Like, fine. Like you can use, like I can use it for something, but
right.
At some stage, even talking to some of my friends, because we're just trying to ramp things up. You're just doing things on a different scale, and it's
right.
It's weird having the conversation with people who you're like, wait, you bought what? Like, yes, we bought that.
Right.
They're a little taken back by it sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, I tell people that I made a Manuka honey trad, and they're like, "You spent what? Yeah,
Wow,
4 pounds of Manuka honey. That was definitely not cheap."
Oh. No, I can't imagine. I've seen that in places. I'm like, I just can't spend the money on it. Like I can't pull the trigger.
It was $36 a pound.
Oh, man, man, that's brutal. So how is it?
I had to do it. I had to do it.
How is it?
Well, that's the one I ended up sending. I'm sending off to this competition.
Oh.
It's interesting. I back sweetened it with some Princess Blossom honey I got from Sean over there, and I'll tell you what, it tastes. And I don't know if I guess it's a credit to the mead, like you were saying with the the floral honey, because you don't often get the actual honey character to come through with the fermentation. The mead tastes almost 100% exactly like the honey.
Oh,
I mean, it's damn near identical. Just a light bit of heat, warmth on the backside because it's like 12%, and I threw a little bit of a tri-acid blend because I didn't really realize that wasn't the good thing to do, is to use the blended acids. But it came out okay. I'm still going to enter in the competition. And I think it would definitely benefit from some more tannins. I put, like I said, in the gallon, I put probably about a 1/4 ounce of oak. I probably could have bumped it up to about a 1/2 ounce of oak and let it sit there a little bit longer to really give it a nice tannic presence at the end. But all in all, I'm not disappointed with how it turned out for my second batch I ever made.
I mean, it's still a data point, no matter what. I mean, it's
a learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, my pineapple upside down cake that turned out like crap, it's still a data point. I mean, that's like, by no means am I an expert, but I see, like, we have a Wisconsin kind of modern mead makers equivalent, and I see some of the things that people do, and like everyone's like, for whatever, like this example, use D47 and like 64 degrees Fahrenheit max. Like, it's a fine yeast, but it needs to sit in about a 3-degree window. And you have anything more than that, and it's going to be fusel as hell. And I learned that mistake, and I see people posting the recipe, I'm like, don't do it, man. I'm telling you, like, you're going to regret that. Don't do that. Unless you have temperature control. Here's a couple other options that you can go by that'll essentially get you where you want to go, that just aren't as consistent. And but I mean, it still just kind of highlights what's good about the community is people are very willing to share their knowledge. It's not like, oh, I've got a secret, I'm better than you, so I'm not going to tell you. That's not the gig, man.
Right.
A rising tide lifts all boats. And, if you learn something and you made a mistake, like, share it. Don't feel bad about that. That's how the next guy doesn't feel scared about spending $36 a pound on honey.
Exactly. I agree a whole lot with that. A high tide rises all ships. We're all in this together, and if we can all learn from each other and benefit from each other's knowledge, is that puns not intended, but that hive mind type of group think that we can all get. And I guess it even goes back to what we were saying earlier, or the conversation earlier about we have all this information available to us, and it just seems that there's so many people that don't read the pinned post at the top of the forum that says, hey, read this first. You agreed to do it when you click yes, I want to be in this group. And then here you are posting the question, hey, has anybody ever used this yeast? Or hey, what does this turn out like? It's like, dude, those are in the first 3 questions in the FAQ, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not willing to go through the steps of trying to educate yourself, I mean, you're probably not going to be that successful. I mean, yeah, we're all, you know, we all try crazy things. We're going to fail, but put in the effort. You know, don't half-ass it. You know, just do, you know, put in the time. You know, you gotta. It takes time to learn. And you know, like we've been doing this for however many years. Said the first couple of batches, they weren't great, but you didn't get, you know, you don't get discouraged by it. You just try to continue to get better. You know, I think that's, I mean, any of the commercial guys that we know, they weren't great right away. It's just a fact.
Oh yeah, every single one of these guys that I've talked to in this year and a half that I've been doing this now, every single one of them talks about, you know, they've got something that there's very few people that don't have, you know, some sort of drain pour under their record, but every single one of them has something that they had to let sit or had to set aside and find another use for because it just went completely, you know, pear-shaped on them.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it is what it is. And I guess that's kind of why I went with that Manuka honey thing. It's, you know, I was told one time when I was in college, I had the opportunity to interview Kevin Smith, the director. And he told me, he was like, you know, people who want to be artists, but, you know, don't know how to do it. The best advice I can give for them is to just go fucking do it. Just go get messy, go get in there, do whatever it takes to do, make mistakes, and start. You need a ground zero. You need a point. You can't just, you know, dip your toes into the pool, so to speak. You need a whole place of reference, and then you can start making changes and modifying from there. Because otherwise, you're just gonna live your life, you know, afraid to try anything that might be scary.
Yeah, that's how we got Clerks.
Exactly. That's how we got Clerks. That's my man. I knew it was a reason why I liked you, Jason. Well, we are coming up right on that 1 hour mark here in a couple minutes. You got a little bit more time for me?
Yeah, sure.
So what's the future going to hold for Off Balance? I mean, not necessarily in the great distant future, as far as going commercial and all that stuff, but like what do you got? You know, you got some stuff that's in the barrels now, but what do you got planned for the next, you know, 6 months?
We're coming up on, I mean, we're coming up on, you know, summer fruit time, so I think it's going to be a little more travel to go get stuff. I've been fortunate that some of the opportunities to get fruit sort of fell in my lap. But I mean, there's a lot of raspberries, a lot of blackberries, a lot of berries in this part of the country. So I want to do that. I mean, I've never done whole cherries. I don't know that I necessarily want to, because I personally don't really like it that much.
I thought it was the pitting thing.
Oh yeah, I don't want to do that shit either. That doesn't mean that I won't do it, because sometimes it's kind of one of those necessary evils. But I know that I love it, so I think that's kind of one of those things where, all right, we'll endure the pain to do it. And then, you know, I've got a bunch of the barrel aged wildflower that's ready to come out. I've got this one, which is kind of a cab front piment that is almost ready to come out, and then another one that's going in. I think some of that's going to be, getting 15 gallons and splitting it and trying to come up with different flavor combinations that aren't just whatever that is. That's going to be part of the fun, because that's kind of like is going to build like a recipe repertoire going forward. You know, so I think that to me, I like doing things that are a little bit different. I mean, I use, like, the name Off Balance comes from, it's a combination of my name, Rohloff, and then I joke about the pretentiousness of mead geeks or craft beer geeks, because, like, I know how they are, right? And especially when you get into the judging, well, it has to have this perfect blend of acid and tannin and blah. Like, nah, it doesn't. I mean, for a score sheet, but what do you want to drink? I mean, I'm talking about making a margarita type mead, and then I want to split in half and throw cucumber in it. Why? I don't know, because it will be fun to do it. Right. I mean, Goose Island made a beer like that shit like 5 years ago, and it was fantastic. So I'm like, okay, I can do something like that. You know, I like dabbling in things that are a little unconventional. Yeah, nobody's going to go wrong with a blueberry, and I love it. I love it as much as anyone does. But I'm not going to just make that. I don't do that. I dabble in shit. You know, like when it comes to beer brewing, I mean, I'm kind of known as one of the guys in the club who will. There isn't an adjunct that I'm afraid to try to figure out how to use it. So I think that's a fun way to be able to incorporate it into the mead world too. In particular, I really like being able to add in like spices. So like the blueberry it's a freshly dumped few rye barrel right now. There's going to be at least 2 or 3 gallons of that are going to get a lot of fresh basil. That is for sure is going to happen. Because blueberry basil is just this unbelievable flavor combination. And I just kind of want to just play with it. I can't sell it. So what the hell's the difference? You know, I may as well try to figure out how best to use it and what flavor profiles work and what people like.
Those are always the ones that I seek out. You know, everybody's got a blueberry melomel or a blackberry or a cherry or, you know, but the ones I always go for is the unique honey varietal traditionals and the unique adjunct experimentals. You know, like Four Fires right now has one that's I think it's a basil mead. Slapping the basil is like, that sounds freaking amazing. Unpossible has a green tomato mead called the Love Apple mead.
That was that Sugar Belt. That was that Sugar Belt.
I got a bottle from Brian. I thought it was pretty darn good for what it was. It took me back for a second. I was expecting it to be kind of funky, but it wasn't. It was actually like light and citrusy and rather refreshing.
Yeah. I mean, it should be. I think it should be fun and unexpected, and you know, it's no different than the craft beer world, right? Everybody who does something a little bit different, what's that new thing? I mean, you can have a couple of staples that are going to come around, you know, every year, but you got to keep innovating and you got to keep trying new things.
Yep.
Personally, that's stuff I love experimenting and doing.
Definitely got to stay on the cutting edge, unless it's a taco meat flavored meat. Then we don't do taco flavors.
I mean, I've had an onion beer and I've had a sauerkraut beer. Those are the things that I'm not probably going to bring over to the mead world anytime.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I think I speak on behalf of most people when I say yes. Oh my God. All right. So I got some rapid fire questions real quick for you before we get out of here tonight and see what we can learn about you there. What's the first thing Jason does when he gets up in the morning?
Usually, I mean, after I brush my teeth, I work out. I'm typically a 3 o'clock in the morning start time when I get up. So this is going to be a little bit of a short night's sleep for me tonight.
I'm the same. Yeah, I got to get up. My alarm goes off at 3:30 in the morning as well. I just happen to be a couple hours behind you. You a hot person or cold person?
Neither bother me. I lived in South Central Missouri for 3 years. I know what really bad heat and humidity is like. I spend time in northern Wisconsin. Doesn't bother me.
Turn signals?
Always. Damn you if you don't, Illinois people.
Same. Cat person or dog person?
Dogs, for sure. Cats are dumb.
Yeah. Pineapple on your pizza?
Sure. I wouldn't ask for it, but if it was on there, I wouldn't pick it off.
Favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Thin Mints, only Girl Scout cookie.
Burgers, pizza, or tacos?
I think I'm going to go with pizza because it's more versatile.
Agreed. Favorite breakfast cereal?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
If you could have any superpower, what would that be?
To be able to start and stop time.
Ooh, that's a good one. What's your favorite mead style to drink?
Berry Melomel. It's not very original, but it's true.
We're all basic when it comes down to it.
True.
If you're going out, pool or darts?
Darts.
Same, darts. What was the first beer you ever drank?
It was probably Miller Lite. I mean, that's a very Wisconsin thing to say. No, I take that back. It was probably Bud Light. That was a thing in high school that Bud Light was like the cool thing.
Gotcha.
But I've definitely probably consumed far more Miller Lite than Bud Light.
I figured you guys would be drinking the messed up there.
I mean, by all means, there's a lot of shitty beer, and I'm a beer snob. I mean, I'm a craft beer guy. I'm a home brewer, but I'm a beer snob when I have the option. But if I don't have the option, I'll take High Life all day.
Ah, yes, the champagne of beers. Right on. And if you weren't brewing mead, what would you be doing?
Brewing beer.
Brewing beer.
Yeah, capital cost is too high though. So maybe I'd go with cider. That's a lot easier.
There it is. Well, this is my man Jason. Thank you so much for showing up here tonight. Everybody go check out Off Balance Mead over on all the socials and all that stuff. Give him a follow. If you see what you see, man, everybody over there is waiting for him to go pro. And I am definitely amongst those people. So I'm going to keep my eyes out for when that membership does go live, because your boy's going to be in that, best believe.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I like watching these. These are good times. And especially thank for doing it for home brewing kind of people, because hey, we're not all pros, and some of us it's just kind of fun to sit and bullshit.
Hey, that's what I love. I love people that just like to sit around bullshit and talk mead with me. So yeah, I appreciate you giving me your time today. Like I said, everybody go follow him over on the socials, and I'll catch you next time, Jason. Have a good night, brother.
Everybody, thank you.
Yep. Well, everybody, thank you for joining me tonight. Jason over there, appreciate you showing up tonight, my man. Anybody, if you have opportunity to hit him up, do some bottle swaps with him, whatever you can, grab something from Off Balance, because this dude's definitely doing it right, and I think he's going to have this stuff dialed in by the time he goes commercial. So I will be back probably not next week. No, I will be back. I'll be back next week with Sidetrack Mead. Got an interview going on with them. So check that out next week. Sidetrack Mead, TK and Drinks Live, another What's the Story interview. Ooh, excuse me. Y'all have a good rest of your night.